Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Steve Monday, Chief Forecaster with Rowan County Weather. Continuing our podcast once again for 2024. If you watched the podcast we've had in the past, of course, you've seen various folks on. We had Doug Rice with MRN Radio, also Corey LaJoy, a NASCAR driver, and then some of our local talent in terms of sports athletes, high school sports athletes around the county. We had some of those folks on. And then, of course, some of my weather colleagues as well, like Brad Panovich. And I'm pleased to be joined by another weather colleague today who some folks question whether we may be related to each other. But Keith Monday with WSOC TV, Channel 9 in Charlotte. Keith, it's a pleasure to have you on with us today.
Well, Steve, thanks for having me on. I love catching up with you. It's been a while since we've had a chance to hang out and talk. And yeah, that's always the big question. Are we actually related? Because there aren't that many Mondays around. There aren't that
Right.
many of us.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but all the Mondays I've come across seem to be pretty good folks. So, hopefully that trend continues and folks agree with that statement from us. But, at least that's the way I feel at this point about it.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
definitely so.
Well, we'll talk near the end of the podcast about our findings on whether we're related with each other or not. But I did want to go ahead and start off really by a lot of folks see you on WSOC TV Channel 9 in the mornings, and they know the Keith Monday they see on air. But tell us a little bit about your background and what made you or what brought you to Charlotte over time.
Well, Steve, it's hard to believe it. This month, it's now 16 years that I've been at Channel 9. So it's hard to believe it's gone by that quickly because it doesn't feel like it's been 16 years, but it's been a long, good stretch of working here at the station. Interesting story about how I got interested in wanting to be a meteorologist. Uh, a lot of folks, have a big event or a big love for weather when they're kids that kind of gets the ball rolling and gets them interested in wanting to be meteorologists, whether it's, just a love for weather and wanting to do things just casually or be on TV like I wanted to do. But mine actually started from having an exceptionally large fear of storms as a kid, big time. Like I remember, it was probably third or fourth grade. We had some really rough weather where I remember lightning struck a neighbor's tree, this big oak tree next to our house, and the loudest clap of thunder I think I'd ever heard in my life. And it just freaked me out. And I remember the next day, the tree was still smoldering. And I was thinking, oh man, it's like our house is next. Like we're ruined. We can't live here anymore. So there were a couple of things like that just really got me afraid of weather at a young age. So I had to obviously get over that fear because I always tell school kids when I talk to them when I do school this. I did one the other day. I said, you can't have a weather guy on TV be afraid of the weather. That'd be like a Saturday Night Live skit. You have the weather guy say, oh, there's rain coming. Oh, my God. So my dad would always be outside watching the weather on the back porch of our house. And I would be kind of hiding behind him and like watching. And he would explain to me that, thunder was just loud and lightning was just bright flashes. And if we were inside, everything was fine. And so I started to get over that fear and started to watch more weather on TV. And that's kind of got how my interest got started and wanting to be on TV to be a meteorologist. And so by the sixth grade, we had a career day at school. And that was my presentation in the sixth grade, was that I wanted to be a TV meteorologist when I grew up. And lo and behold, I've been doing it now for, gosh, I guess been 25 years that I've been a weather person, various cities across the country. So it's been a long, good career. And I have a healthy respect for storms now, not necessarily a fear of them unless you're out there and that lightning gets a little too close. And you're like, all right, got to go inside.
Definitely. I cannot believe 16 years at Channel 9. That doesn't even seem like you've been around here that long, to be quite honest with you. I know you've certainly been there that long, but it's hard to fathom. I mean, that's how quickly time goes by.
Yeah.
So going back to your youth and everything, it's interesting. I had similar instance on what got me interested in weather. Hurricane Hugo, obviously, we talk about it to this day in this area. That's the one that got me, and it was more about just being out there seeing the path of this system as it came through. Category 1 hurricane in this area when it got here, and just that was something that I was like, I've got to understand how these things work. But much like you, I did have a fear of storms when I was a kid. I remember my grandfather would do much like your father. He would go outside, stand on like a back porch and watch, thunder and lightning. And nowadays we're like, yeah, you probably don't want to really do that, but it is very interesting to see those similarities. Um, what would you say? We know what your earliest moment would be for weather, obviously, but who would you say was your earliest meteorologist or even local TV weather guy or whatever that would you say would be the first inspiration you had?
Well, there were two guys that I remember vividly. My parents watched when I was a kid. There was a gentleman at the NBC station in St. Louis that I watched. His name was Bob Richards, and then there was a gentleman named Dave. Oh gosh, now his last name is escaping me. I can't think of his last name. Dave Murray. Dave Murray was his last name, and he was at I think the ABC or CBS. He actually ended up on Good Morning America for a while back in the I think late '80s. So he was kind of a real well-known meteorologist locally in St. Louis, and it kind of got a name for himself nationally too. So yeah, those two guys were the ones that I watched religiously as a kid. And any time that they would be covering storms and show the radar. And I remember like the first time they started using like storm tracking technology on air and giving us like the times when storms would come. I'd be like, that's amazing. They know exactly when it's going to be coming in my house. That's so cool. So I started to get really into it, watching those people on TV. And then eventually, as you got older, started watching the Weather Channel. And, I would always have that on, especially like in college. I remember like studying late at night for tests and whatnot. And you just have the Weather Channel on in the background and Bob Hope and watching not John Hope, but watching the hurricane updates and stuff like that. So that's kind of how got inspired by those folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about the Monday family in general, as far as your immediate family, wife and kids. I know you guys, what do you guys like about the Charlotte area, and what's been your favorite thing about the Charlotte area since you've been here?
Uh, a lot of it, I mean, we spent a lot of time moving, but right from when my wife and I met. My wife also works in the TV business, so that's how we met. So she is the news director for a cable outlet in Rock Hill called CN2 News. And so we met at our first TV jobs in Lubbock, Texas, out of college. And if you're familiar with Lubbock, it's where Texas Tech University is. And so it's a big college town. And, kids coming out of college in their first jobs in a big college town, it was fantastic. It was like an extension of college life. But, I was from St. Louis. She was from just outside New York City. So we were like two peas in a pod because we were just so out of our element, moving out into the middle of nowhere, Texas. I mean, Lubbock, Texas is what you imagine Texas is. It's flat, it's tumbleweeds, it's cattle, it's barbed wire fences. It is exactly what you imagine. The oil derricks out in the distance. I mean, it's all that. So it was a big experience, especially with severe weather. I mean, it was, gosh, a real good education for learning how to cover severe storms. So we started there, real small town. We actually lived in Amarillo after that. So we moved to the metropolis of Amarillo, an hour and a half north of Lubbock. That's where we got married while we were there. And we ended up in West Virginia in the Charleston, Huntington area. So we kind of always lived in some smaller cities and we worked our way up. And then when the opportunity came to move to Charlotte, it's like, whoa, it's like, this is amazing. It's a big city. They have professional sports teams. They get concerts. They get shows. Like, this is exciting. So we fell in love with it like immediately when we moved here. And it was the first time in our career that we had felt like we're done moving. Like, we're throwing boxes out, buying a house. Like, so we're out of the business of trying to find something new to work our way up. And so we've been lucky to both stay at the same jobs that we've had since we both moved here. So it's been great. It's been great raising the kids. We live in Fort Mill, South Carolina. So it's, about a 20-minute commute for me early in the morning. It's a piece of cake. I mean, other people would say the traffic is terrible driving to come in from to town, at normal hours, but morning hours, it's great. But it's a great community. Our kids are involved in sports and dance and stuff in the community and band in school. So we've loved it. It's been great. And it's now where our roots are, and no signs of ever wanting to leave. Even if we down the road retire from TV and do other stuff, like we have no plans of ever leaving. We like it here so much.
Yeah, that's great. It's and one of the things I love about this area. Of course, I've grown up here all my life, but one of the things I love is a lot of folks that transplant in here, through jobs or whatever. They they literally enjoy the fact that we have four distinct seasons here, and you don't really get that in a lot of other places in the country. I mean, you can you can go down to like Texas, like for example, like you mentioned. Obviously, they have had some recent snowstorms and ice storms there, but that's really a rarity for them. It's mainly just kind of hot most of the year. You get a little bit of cooler weather in the fall and then the winter, but it's really no real distinct changes in the seasons and locations like that. And I feel like we're very gifted with that here, even though I know a lot of folks are hungry and anxious for snow. We've obviously been in this snow drought coming up on 2 years now.
Yeah.
But and I know I'm sure you're seeing it from your side as well. There is a lot of anxiety and wanting to get that snow in. And so while we're on that subject, I still feel like we've got quite a bit of winter left. But what are your thoughts on if we're going to get a potential snow between now and the end of winter?
I mean, I would be surprised that if we get nothing again, because last year was such a rare occasion, unprecedented that we had not even flurries, like not even trace. Like that's crazy that we had absolutely zilch. So the fact that, yeah, like you said, like, by the end of this month, we're coming up on 2 years of no measurable snow at all in Charlotte. It's just hard to imagine. So going another season, we'll see. I this last blast of cold air like gave a lot of folks hope that we would see something, and then I get asked often, the old folklore and wise tale about if you have thunder in winter, that 10 days or less later you're going to get snow. And so we had big storms several weeks ago, and all right, this is it, like the cold air is coming, and then it was just too dry and it's never worked out. But yeah, I mean, I most of our big snows are always in February and March. So, I mean, it's can't rule it out, obviously. But yeah, we're getting about halfway through here. And it's like, all right, come on, let's try to get at least one, because I like at least one. I mean, even if we have more, it's not terrible from my vantage point. I think covering snowstorms are fun. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work. It's stressful at times, but it's fun. I don't know. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I do too as well. And there's a lot of folks. I know it becomes an inconvenience when it's happening, but there's some benefits to getting at least one good snow as well. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
certainly cuts down on the insect population for us, and really gives us some cleansing in a way. Even in the atmosphere and all that. But yeah, it's definitely you can feel the anxiety building with a lot of folks. And I know like you said, we got February, and I can remember. One of my most favorite birthdays was really it's been a little over a decade ago. We got almost a foot of snow on February 13th, which happens to be my birthday. And
Uh-huh.
so I would love to do that again this year, but we'll have to see how it plays out, obviously. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's certainly been interesting. Let's talk about the team at WSOC TV. You guys have a great team there, between yourself, Steve, John, and everybody else. I know occasionally you get some freelancers that come in who've been on other stations and it's really neat to see those folks come in. Lindsey Tomlinson, I'm sorry. Lindsay Tapassis comes to mind
Facets.
as one. And it's great to see her come in from time to time. But tell us about the team and the camaraderie you guys have off air there.
Oh, it's great. And that's been, I feel like it's just a hallmark of our department here for the 16 years I've been here. It's just that everybody gets along great, and we're a great, solid crew. And, even though, Steve is starting to work his way out of things, he's kind of got, I don't know how many toes in retirement now, but he's working his way there. But with John still around and myself, and even that we have pieces of other folks that have come and gone over the years, but everybody that's been here, it's always been a great team. We always work really well together, and I think it's because we all know why we're here. We're here to inform the public and make sure people are safe and know what's going on, and not worried about okay, whose forecast was right, or who got it wrong, or there's no ego involved with any of us here. And I feel it's kind of the same way with all the meteorologists in the market. I mean, everyone gets along really well. um, with all the stations. So it's been real conducive for everybody to have a good environment to work in here and in the city as well. But yeah, with Maddie in place now and Joe, and it's a good team of folks. It's fun to get new blood in every now and then because people change careers and people move on to different cities, and you get younger folks in. I kind of joke now because I remember a time when I was the younger folk when I first started, so long ago, and now it's like, wow, I'm getting up there now. It's like I'm one of the older folk now, and I'm sure I think we're about similar ages, but I'm sure you feel the same way. It's like you get that, you say something or you think something, you're like, man, that's something my dad would say. Like you start thinking like, I'm one of the older folk now. But it's great to be able to teach the new meteorologists coming in about the area and giving them the insights that we've picked up on and learned over so many years of working here.
It's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned the other meteorologists around the Charlotte area, because I know there are times where some, if not all of us, get together for different gatherings and all that, and there is a special bond there because there's a misconception, I think, not only here but really worldwide, where it's oh well, so and so forecasted this, and what's your take? And it kind of tries to pit the forecast against each other and all that. And we none of us really get into that whole back and forth. It's, look, here's my forecast. That's all I can give you. Just as long as you choose someone to get your weather information from, that's really all that matters to us.
Oh yeah.
But I did want to go back to real quickly. Steve, you were talking about Steve, and I know a lot of folks don't really get to see this, but I've seen times where you guys have all gotten together as a team. Steve's a big yacht guy. He's got the yacht, I think he has up at Lake Norman or Lake Wiley, one of the two, and I know he gets it out sometimes and gets the team together to do that. How special is that for you guys to be able to gather away from work like that?
Yeah, it's always good to relax and catch up. We have like a in-house meeting on Friday just to kind of catch up with each other. So we try to do that often, just so we're on the same page about not just things here at work, but just enjoying each other's company outside of work too, and becoming good friends, which is key to having great coworkers, is being friends with folks and getting along really well. So we've always done a really good job at that over the years of finding that time for us to kind of hang out and get together. And talking about the other meteorologists, other stations, we had a big luncheon. It was just before the holidays at a restaurant in Charlotte, and it was just everybody from every station was there, and it was funny to watch people walking by, like looking at us, looking at the table, like what's going on, like what are y'all doing here? And I remember somebody was even just surprised that we all hung out, and it's like, well, it's like to your point, like, well, we're all here for the same thing. We just want to make sure people are getting the information. We don't care who's doing better job or worse job. We'll do some friendly poking fun here and there, but it's always a good time.
Yeah, definitely, and I certainly enjoy seeing some of the social media posts, especially the one you were talking about right before the holidays. It was pretty neat to see you guys sitting there with Al Conklin and his team, Brad Panovich and his team, and just like you said, you could see some folks in the background looking, and you could see a little bit of comfort of, well, all the weather folks are here, so there can't be anything bad going on. But wait a minute, what are they all doing together?
What if we missed something? What if something's going on we don't know about it?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that we're seeing in this area that I really like is, I use Eric Thomas, who used to be at WBTV. He's moved on and retired now, but he's still very active in the weather world. And him and Van Denton up in Winston-Salem, and Fox 8, they've been working very well together. I know Brad's been involved in it, and I think Steve has as well, with trying to fill the gap with radar in the Charlotte metro area. Obviously, it's been well documented, one of the largest areas in the country that has inadequate radar coverage. You guys actually have your own in-house radar. So I want to hear about that. But before you talk about your in-house radar, what are your thoughts on the big gap that we have in terms of coverage for radar in the Charlotte area?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate circumstance of, I'm sure, of just politics and budgets over the decades, is how it all kind of came to be. When the Weather Service reorganized back in the 90s, I think it was the 90s, early 90s maybe. And the main office kind of moved out of Charlotte and went down to Greenville. So yeah, I mean, believe that Charlotte is the largest metropolitan area in the country that does not have its own Weather Service radar. So that is a big problem. I mean, granted, the National Weather Service out of Greenville does a fantastic job, and they're not hurting because they don't have a radar here. They have their radar out in Greer. They have the terminal Doppler at the airport that they use to detect things closer to Charlotte as well. But they would love to have something here too. I mean, nobody who wouldn't. I mean, it would be great to have another, Weather Service radar posted here in the city. So I know. I mean, Steve, I believe even went to talk to people in Washington last year about it too, just to say, okay, this is still where we are and what we need. And it's great having our own radar. We're in the middle of moving that radar from where it had been for many years. It was out on Albemarle Road in East Charlotte for the longest time, which had been kind of pasture land and not much was out there. Well, now there's a bunch of houses there and a hospital and a bunch of stuff. So they had to move the radar. So we're finishing up moving it and getting that all set up. And that may still be a while before that's all finished, but hopefully get that back online and then going here, and helps to supplement what the Weather Service radar has out in Greer and some of the minor shortcomings that do come up of having that so far away. So yeah, it's hopefully one day the government can find the money and try to figure out how to fill that gap up. And we're not alone. I mean, there's other parts even in the middle of the country and in parts of the deep South that get as bad or even worse weather than we do. And for whatever reason, however government politics goes, the money's not there all the time to get the things that we sometimes want and need.
Yes, definitely. And like you said, it's you certainly guys, you have the in-house radar you use. It's been very good, with the one you had in the past. And you mentioned you're doing some moving with that right now. I do remember a few years ago, I don't remember the exact year. There was some storms that were coming through the area. There were some storms that were coming through the area. And without your radar that we had in the Charlotte area, there were some things that would have been missed. I don't know if you remember exactly what I'm talking about in general, but I know you picked up on some storms that were coming through that actually were showing a lot of severity that were lower than the Greer beam could pick up. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the benefit of having that locally, because you miss that couple thousand feet, and there's a lot of weather that goes on in that a couple thousand feet below those radar beams. So it's been a blessing to have it over the years, and we're lucky to have it and be able to hopefully get a little more detail and more quicker forecasting of when some rough weather comes our way. Which, knock on wood, thankfully we've had a pretty good stretch recently. The last couple of years we haven't had anything too terribly crazy going on. So hopefully we can kind of keep that going for a while too. Give us snow, but not the other part of it.
Sorry, my mic froze up on me there for a second. Let me just take a moment because I haven't done this yet. Do a little bit of paying the bills here. So we want to thank William Ryan Enterprises, who sponsors our podcast here. They're located at 1600 North Main Street in China Grove. They do all kinds of custom home building, remodeling, renovating, you name it. If you're hearing any noise in the background, it's all from a project they're doing here at my home. They're doing a master bathroom remodel. We've been sharing some video and some photos of that on Rowan County Weather for folks to be able to see the quality of work they do. Keith, I did mention to you off air about this, that my wife has a form of muscular dystrophy, and so we're doing this master bathroom remodel to potentially prepare in case she ever gets confined to a wheelchair or anything like that. So we're doing floating vanities, curbless showers, all kinds of things. And these guys have been working hard and making a lot of things happen here. So looking forward to sharing all that. But I did want to take just a moment to thank them for sponsoring the podcast and making it, potential, or giving me the potential to have folks like yourself on, Keith, to talk with. And certainly appreciate your time as well. Before we do wrap up, though, I did want to cover a couple more things with you. So obviously there's the elephant in the room about whether we may be related to each other or not. We're gonna get to that in one moment, but I do have one more Charlotte weather related question for you before we get to that. So 16 years you've been around the Charlotte area. What would you say has been your, I want to take this two ways. I want to go with your favorite Charlotte weather moment and then your least favorite Charlotte weather moment.
Well, there are probably a couple of least favorites I could probably think of off the top of my head. And usually involves any time that we get, QLCS storms coming through. I hate those things. Those are the most stressful weather events that you could cover because, I mean, for those that may not be familiar with, basically it's a line of severe weather, a squall line of storms. And we can get little spin ups along those lines. And those spin ups may not last very long. They may happen briefly for like a minute or two. Be on the ground, if they produce anything, be on the ground for a very short period of time that can do damage in that short period of time. And a lot of the times those things can go by without getting warned on and not letting us get enough warning out to folks because they are hard to forecast and hard to pinpoint. So we've had a handful of those events over the years where tornadoes have dropped down unwarned and happened quickly, late at night or early in the morning. And those are the ones you have nightmares about because they're just so stressful and you've got to just kind of watch the radar constantly. You're just kind of staring at things, looking for little notches here or there. And those kind of days are the worst. Sadly, we get a lot of those kind of severe events, here in the Carolinas. Most fun and more interesting. I mean, Florence was one that sticks out because that was such a unique storm. Just hanging out there on the coast for a while and then eventually coming in here and just dumping a ton of rain and bringing some wind. That's a big memory for me covering that a couple of years ago. And really anytime we get hurricanes that come to the Carolinas, we always put our guard up and get real excited about it. And then occasionally we get some issues from them. But some of the snows over the years have always been fun. You had mentioned the one a couple of years ago where we gotten a big snow. Probably our last time we had a big snow was that one you mentioned. So those are fun. We've had thunder snow a few times, so that gets exciting because you get a little burst of heavier snow with that. And one of the things that used to actually scare me so much as a kid was a thunder snow event. We had a big ice and snowstorm in St. Louis. I think it was either 82 or 83 that I could not believe it was thundering in the wintertime. And because I hated storms at that point in my life. And so the fact that we were having thunder in winter, oh my gosh, I was so afraid of that. But now I think that's one of the most cool things in the world. So having this lack of snow the last couple of years has been, it's been kind of boring. It's like, come on, let's get some more fun. John would probably disagree with me. John hates covering winter storms. So he would be happy if we don't have any snow this winter.
That's funny. So you mentioned you're from St. Louis. We'll kind of go into whether we may or may not be related to each other part. The only ties that I have to St. Louis, I mentioned earlier with you off air, I've found no evidence of any family members I have in the St. Louis area. But the big tie I have to St. Louis, and a lot of folks don't know this, and you don't really know this, but I'm getting ready to mention it for you, is I am a massive St. Louis Cardinals fan. And that really baffles a lot of folks because they're like, how do you grow up here and like the St. Louis Cardinals? So I'll give you my reasoning behind that. When I was growing up, of course, obviously, and same with you, this from the pre-cable days, as we'll call it, you couldn't get but certain games on your television, and one of those was the game of the week for Major League Baseball, whoever it may be for, and the St. Louis Cardinals happened to be one of the games I would get to see from occasion. And I was a huge Ozzie Smith fan. Used to love how he would run on the field and do the big backflip and get in his position at shortstop. And just made me a St. Louis Cardinal fan from as early as I can remember, in terms of watching baseball. So that's really my only tie to St. Louis. But, I've done some genealogy. You mentioned your father, I think, had done some as well. I don't really see anything that shows we're related to each other, but obviously that means nothing really because you can dig way deep and eventually find your answers. But I did want to get together and answer that question with you. And I know it's been a question that's been posed to me a lot. I don't know if you get it as much as I do, but certainly with folks around the area, they're like, I watch your brother on television all the time.
Well, as long as you claim me, that's fine. We'll take it.
Yeah, definitely.
But,
go ahead.
I was going to say that. So I grew up in St. Louis. My parents moved there after they got married. My dad originally was from the Chicago area. He grew up in Joliet. but his dad was from West Virginia, is where the Monday line went back that way. And so when my wife and I moved to West Virginia many years ago, I think it was 2003 or four, I knew that I had family not far from where we lived. So my dad had said, "Oh yeah, don't forget, like you know, about an hour south of where we lived is where my grandfather grew up." And so one day we probably lived in our house not very long at all, maybe just a couple of months. And there's a knock on the door, and my wife answers. She comes over to the living room, said, "There's an older gentleman at the front door that looks a lot like your grandfather and says he's your uncle." And I was like, "Oh, is that Uncle Hump?" So I had an uncle whose nickname was Uncle Hump that was living in West Virginia at the time. So we got to catch up with them, and I hadn't seen these people that were relatives since we had family reunions when I was a kid. So I got to reconnect with a bunch of family there. So that was really cool. But once you get past like Virginia, West Virginia, I'm trying to think of other places where that Monday line went, and I can't remember off the top of my head what other areas, but I know we went back pretty far into the Virginia, West Virginia, going pretty far back, almost Revolutionary War time. Is how far back my dad had found.
I may have to keep digging into this because you did mention two areas that I have found family members of ours, and some that I, personally know growing up. That I've got some family members that have lived up through like Galax and on up into Bluefield and places like that, going up through West Virginia. But also some family members who did grow up and live in Joliet. So
Oh,
there could be some common ground there that we don't even know about.
yeah. We've been joking about this for years, and maybe it
Yeah.
is true.
Yeah,
That's
so
funny.
as I mentioned to you, really the only person I found two folks in our genealogy that we folks may be aware of if anyone was a big baseball fan, Major League Baseball fan back in the day. This gentleman played for the Philadelphia Phillies, the Oakland Athletics, the Los Angeles Dodgers. His name was Rick Monday. I did find out that I'm related to him. You're not familiar with whether that happens on your side or not.
Yeah.
Um, and I've also got through ancestry, they'll come back and tell you, oh, you're related to this celebrity or this person or whatever. So a sixth great cousin of mine is Abraham Lincoln. So don't know if that's been
Huh.
discovered on your side or not, but that was one
No.
that came up, and so I've been really digging into all this stuff, trying to find the answer over the years. But it's certainly interesting that there is some close ties there. So maybe we can figure it out eventually.
Yeah, that would be really cool to see if it turns out to be the case. If not, we'll just accept each other as weather
That's
brothers, and
right.
that'll work too.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, Keith, I certainly appreciate your time with us, today, and certainly look forward to chatting with you again more. We talk off and on social media for sure. See each other on occasion at different events. I know Charlotte, UNC Charlotte, usually has like a weather fest or something they do, and we typically see each other there or something. Or if the National Weather Service is having a big event, we might run into each other there. But certainly, it's a pleasure as always to chat with you. I really appreciate the time that you gave us today, and look forward to seeing you on the airwaves.
Well, Steve, thanks for having me on. I appreciate that you reached out to be on your podcast. It was a lot of fun. Nice to catch up, and we're gonna work on the relationship thing. See if we find out, are they really related? We're gonna find out.
Sounds good.